Welcome to another episode of Just More Fix. This is James. With me in this episode is Lacey.
Hey.
You can find us online at justmorefix.com or on Twitter at justmorefix. If you like us, you can support us at Patreon, and you can give us a rating and review at iTunes or wherever you find us at. In this episode, we're going to have a GenCon 52 review. And now, it's time to get our gaming fix.
I'm Willie D. Nelson from All Things Good and Nerdy, a pop culture podcast, part of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other tantalizingly geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
Welcome to another episode of Just More Fix. Couple quick announcements before we jump into our GenCon wrap-up. You may have noticed that we missed a couple episodes, but that's sort of like how things go for our production cycle, I guess, every year. About coming up on GenCon, we start to have a little bit of a burnout in our editing and stuff process, and then we go to GenCon, and GenCon is where I sort of like refuel my creative batteries and that kind of stuff. So we aren't going anywhere. We're here and ready to go and have a whole lot more awesome things coming to you guys, which we'll probably talk about a few of those that happened at GenCon, and we're super excited for them. In addition to that, we had a small delay with the Hastings party, so I should be getting that to the printer and getting approved next week, and then we'll have those printed, and the turnaround time on that is really fast, and then I will have those out to all of our Patreon backers at the appropriate levels in the mail really soon, probably hopefully late next week, early the week after. I don't know how you say that. Either way, very soon. And then coming up along with that, I imagine we're probably going to do a Three Sisters brainstorming session, because I think that'll really seems to kind of pull our ideas together, and I realized we hadn't done that at all, and I think it's probably a pretty good idea. Right on, so we're going to do a GenCon 52 wrap-up. So for those of you that were there and we saw and were able to sit down and game with, we had a really good time sort of connecting with everybody and listeners again, and was good to sit down and play games and have a really good time. So for those of you that we missed, sorry we missed you, and if you can't make it to GenCon, man, you should really try next year, because it's just an amazing time. And I think every Gen Con that we have gone to, it has gotten better and better and better. Con and just our individual experiences, I guess you could say. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so.
Right on. So I've got some quick numbers to throw out here real quick before we jump into our experiences. So this was Gen Con 52.
Numbers.
Well, I got the press release from Gen Con, which usually came out last year. I think it came out much later. So when we did a wrap up, I didn't have the information yet. So this year there were 70,000 unique Gen Con attendees, which is up from last year, which was 60-some thousand. I can't remember exactly what the number was, but it was in the 60,000 range. And it also brought in $70 million to the Indianapolis area in terms of food and lodging, taxis, fuel, all of the snacky stuff that you get, just all the different con stuff. $70 million was brought in to the greater Indianapolis area for Gen Con. So,
I mean, not to like pull a Beatles or anything, but I wonder if we're bigger than Christmas at this point. I would like to see the data.
In addition to that, there was a ton of money raised for charity, as always, with the balloon pop, the balloon statue pop, and the
balloon creature, Slay, the balloon creature.
Yeah. And then Card Holla. And then there are several other charity things that are always going on during Gen Con. I believe they raised in the range of $300,000, I think, somewhere this year. So that's really, really awesome to do. In addition to that, they paid for an all-expenses trip for a 13-year-old kid from Texas somewhere. I cannot remember the name of the condition that he had, but it was some
Make-A-Wish, right?
I can't remember, but it was either way, he had some kind of an illness and stuff, and him and his mom and dad and family, they flew them all up, all expenses paid, which I thought was really cool to do. So it's really cool to see Gen Con be successful, but it's also really cool to see how much the gaming community and Gen Con itself as an organization is able to give back to charities and other things going on like that. It's really, really cool, because
the charity this year was Game to Grow. I think there was a second one as well, but
what's Game to Grow? Do you know? So what is Game to Grow?
So it is a nonprofit that uses role-playing games to help kids basically like integrate socially.
Right on.
Help them with developing social skills through gaming.
Right on. Very cool. All right. So, and then I believe it was somewhere in the range of like, I'm going to just throw out a number. I think it was like 16 or 11,000 unique events were ran.
Did you fact check that?
It was in the email, and it was more than 10,000 and less than like 17. So I can't remember, and I can't find the email right now on my phone. I don't know. I'm having difficulties. But
A lot. There were a lot of events.
Yeah. And it was more than last year. And the e-ticketing thing, none of our events had that. But so it was interesting to see. And it was very cool to see that Gen Con is alive and well in Indy and continues to grow. And yeah, it's be cool to be part of something awesome. So now on to the awesome part of Gen Con, which was our experience or your experience.
The most relevant portion of the con.
Exactly. Well, like the numbers are cool to see, and it's interesting to see how much it brings into the community of Indianapolis and how well and thriving the gaming community is. But let's be honest, we're all there to have a good time and check out some new and great games. So do you just want to mention some faves that you had of things that you saw or that we did?
God,
we can go back and forth.
More than any other Gen Con, it's just like a blur. Like it's just a blur.
It was. So maybe we should set this up a little bit. This year, our Gen Con experience was kind of different. We didn't really try to get into any events this year. Last year we did.
We didn't really try. I tried to get into nothing.
Oh yeah.
I committed to
nothing. Yeah, no,
nothing that was like formal and like Gen Con event.
Right. So last year we did really good in the lottery. We got into a Bluebeard's Bride game. We got into several games that we sort of had Kickstarter and really wanted to get into and just happened to get lucky to be able to go do them because we were in the in a V5 game and all kinds of stuff. But this year we didn't sign up for anything and we were just going to kind of go and wing it, and we knew about Games on Demand and thought we'll go there and play some games there. And yeah, it was like no pressure, which was really kind of nice. I looked at a couple seminars on publishing and that kind of stuff that were free seminars that were going on, but really no serious commitments to anything. And I'm proud to say that we did not buy tickets to any games that we didn't go to, because that's something I was going to talk about here in a little bit. It's kind of frustrating, but I think the more relaxed approach to it has been really good. I don't know if we'll do every Gen Con we go to seems to be its own animal, and we'll see what happens next year. But I had a great time. And I would say that we actually did more gaming this year than we did last year, I think.
You say that every year.
We'll have to go back and fact check the tape. But we really did, though. We played a lot of games and stuff. So do you just want to go back and forth with some faves of Gen Con this year?
Sure.
So you want to start? You want me to?
Are we categorizing this in any kind of like fashion whatsoever?
Not really. I thought we'd just go back and forth. So what's your first favorite moment of Gen Con this year?
Oh, favorite moment?
Or game, or just favorite thing from Gen Con this year?
I like that's a weird thing. Like people always say that, like, what was your favorite moment of Gen Con? First of all, I'm cool all the time, so I don't feel like Gen Con is like standing out as some superb instantaneous moment where I like battled a real life dragon or anything. Like I was walking around hanging out with my friends and playing games. It's basically my weekend, except more of it.
Right.
Anyhow, my Gen Con rant. I can tell you what my favorite booth was.
What was your favorite booth?
It's the Genius Games booth. It's a combination of them and Artana games.
So what games does Genius Games and Artana make?
All of the ones that I own.
Oh, right on.
No. So
they don't make all of the games we own. Thank you very much.
I'm vice versa. Right.
Right.
So they make Tesla versus Edison and expansions. Mm-hmm. So that's Artana, and then Einstein.
Right.
And they have a new game called Loveless and Babbage, which has to do with mathematics.
Right.
And then there was another game they were coming out with, which involved trains in some fashion. It kind of reminded me of Tesla versus Edison, but with like the trains booming, so it's less like Ticket to Ride and a little bit more like the Tesla versus Edison, like buying up stock and expanding and that kind of thing. And then Genius Games makes Cytosis, Subatomic. Their new game is Periodic, and then which is the periodic table. And then they make like a series of smaller games too, Ion, Peptide, Covalence, and Virulence, I believe.
Yeah. Yep.
So
yeah, all their games
basically own them all now.
They're a lot of fun and they're great games, and I like science games. But more importantly, they're not games that are just throwing around terms. Like Cytosis is the one that comes immediately to mind to me because it does a great job.
Yeah, you're like actually building things. You're adding proteins on with ribosomes, and you're packaging your molecules inside the Golgi apparatus to ship outside of the cell.
Well, you're quite literally gamifying cellular respiration. It's really, really cool. And I think it's a great way to teach people biology in a completely non-intimidating way. And then you learn some of these terms like the endoplasmic reticulum and all this different stuff.
Well, it's like perfect, right? You look at these games and you're like, this was made by someone who loves and understands games and also loves and understands science.
Yes.
And they bridge them perfectly.
Yeah. And now, granted, we just got periodic, and the periodic table is very intimidating if you're not familiar with it or whatever, right? There's a lot happening on there. And then to sort of gamify it and move pieces around and sort of build compounds. And I was like flipping through the cards when I was punching the game. And like one of them was like, you got to make steel and you got to make like bicarb or whatever, And I think it's really kind of a cool way, because not only is it teaching you what the different elements are moving around, and this is the noble gases section, and this is the heavy, the ferrous metals section and all, like all that kind of stuff. It really, I don't know. I think it's really cool to where it shows you how things are, what they're made up of. Do you know what I mean? It makes you think about things a little bit differently. You know what I'm saying? And in a way that you don't realize you're learning, which is really always entertaining.
Or, we have 3 kids. So as a parent, even if they learn nothing about the actual process, they're encountering the terminology. So inevitably, when they encounter it in the future, it'll be much less intimidating because they've at least heard some of these weird Latin things that are being thrown around at them out of nowhere all of a sudden.
Right. Oh, yeah. So I'm super excited to play that one. I'm kind of curious. And then we got Tesla versus Edison because...
we already had the dual game, but now we have the core game as well.
Because we didn't, so.
And the AI expansion.
Right.
Whatever is included there. Excited to find out.
Right on. So do you have anything else about the Artana and Genius Games booth?
I think I covered pretty much everything that I saw there, but like they're just, friendly people and science. Yay, science.
Right.
It hits all my awesome nerd buttons.
So my first one is going to be kind of an easy, quick one, and it's food. There are several restaurants that are in the downtown area that we hit every year that we really enjoy to go to. And as always, we got to them all, and a couple of them multiple times. And it's just fun to go out, and our pace of things was much more relaxed this year, as I mentioned before. So it wasn't like, hey, we've got to go get something to eat, and we've got a 2-hour window to eat, and then we have to be back across at the Hyatt for this game or whatever, right? There's only really one time where we had some kind of time constraint, and that was when we had put up the thing about gaming in the JW. And really, it wasn't even a time constraint. We just sort of like had planned accordingly, and it went just fine. So for those of you that don't know, there are lots of great restaurants that run the gamut in terms of cost at GenCon, and I love them all, and I like good food. So good food, good friends, good beer, that whole thing.
Where did we did go somewhere this year we hadn't been before. So Loft Miller's Pub. Alan recommended. So if anybody hasn't tried them out, like great portion sizes, decent price, super friendly folks.
Right. Yeah, so I guess we'll just sort of list the ones that we like to go to. So don't go there and make them terribly busy. So we like Mikado, which is a Japanese place.
It's awful.
That has
Should not check it out.
amazing wasabi dumplings. Although I'm not sure if my tolerance has gotten higher or if they have dulled them down a little bit. But they don't seem as face melting as they once did. Fogo de Chao, obviously we do for lunch because meat coma. And the Clada is a great little Italian.
Irish, remotely Italian.
Irish restaurant.
Not even close.
It's called the Clada. That should have been obvious. And
the other group of European descendants that we hated, but it's cool now.
Right. Where else did we go? St. Elmo's.
Yeah, gotta have the cocktail shrimp.
No. We went to Harry Nizzi's. We didn't go to St. Elmo's.
Whatever. Same cocktail shrimp.
Right. True story. Got our face melted by the shrimp cocktail. So, but there's also the Oceana down there that we didn't go to. Oceanair. Yeah, I'm sorry. If you like seafood, that has really good food, and there's just loads and loads of great little restaurants down there.
And Georgia Street Grind, best coffee.
Oh yeah.
Local coffee shop.
Right.
Not Starbucks.
And they're gamers.
Well, the 2 people that were working were not going to the con. It didn't seem to be game, but last time I went, there was...
Well, I think it's the guys that actually run it and own it then, because last year when we were there, we were talking to them.
They did have a Gen Con shirt on, though, so...
Yeah, because one guy was like, yeah, I have to be here to run the store because the other guy that is at the con, so... And I thought it was pretty funny because they couldn't both be gone at the same time. I was like, what a bummer that you can't go to the con with your buddy because of the coffee stop.
Maybe they hired 2 people that don't go to the con to work this year. So
we need you to work for these 4 days. Right on. So that's a kind of a gimme is the food, but I just always mention it because I like I like food.
While we're on the topic of food, the GenCon beer this year.
Oh, yeah.
Sun King Brewery. What were your thoughts?
So it was the Brewmaster 5000. I thought the name was kind of
Brutron.
Brutron 5000. I thought the name left a little bit to be desired.
Honestly, I feel like the name is lame every single year.
That's true.
I do not fit in with the whole sci-fi Star Trek crowd that picks the name out every year. But like the Froth of Khan, okay, kind of clever, but whatever, Star Trek.
So this year it wasn't an IPA, which I was happy about because Sun King does the brewing and most of their brews are IPAs, and I prefer to mow my grass and not drink it. So, but this one was a Japanese style sour.
I don't think I've ever had a sour beer before.
It was pretty good. It was I wouldn't say extremely sour, but it was on the more sour side, you know.
I liked it. I like sour.
Yeah. And it was good. I enjoyed it. I'm not sure I would want to drink a ton of them in one sitting, but it was a nice change of pace, and it was good to see something that wasn't an IPA this year, so I was happy for that. So I think I drank 3 or 4 of them over the course of the con, and I enjoyed every one of them. So, right on. I guess in terms of gaming stuff, though, my unintentional highlight that I just sort of stumbled into and completely forgot about was the Berlin, the Wicked City Call of Cthulhu book. I had wanted to get the PDF of it because it had been released, but they weren't going to print it and release it until Gen Con. And so I held off and was waiting for Gen Con and then completely forgot because I'm kind of a moron. And then we were just happening to walk by the Chaosium booth and I looked over and saw it and was like, oh my God, I've got to have this book. Like, stop right now. We're not like, this is the thing I have to get. So I'm very, very glad that we just sort of happened to stumble into it and get it because I am super excited because the interwar period in Germany, I think, is really cool. The Weimar Republic part of it is a very interesting time period. And Berlin is just a hot mess in that with like art and secret societies and all the mythos stuff that exists and potential and stuff. So I'm excited because I'm going to run a Yellow King game that is in Berlin once I finish that book, and I'm super stoked for it, and I think it's going to be awesome.
Very cool.
So I think that might be my favorite book that I got.
If you could figure out a way to use that with the Dust Minis, I'm on board.
I'm sure we could work it out, like do combat zone styles for Fate with that kind of stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That could be cool.
Maybe you could just use it as source material for Dust.
Dust is after that, though.
I'm just going to need you to work it out.
I'll see what I can do.
Right. It'll be a prequel. It'll be good.
Prequel, yeah. So do you have what's your next one?
I do. Okay, so it's not like a specific booth, but I just realized this about myself this year. Like, I guess I already knew it was a thing, but I didn't like come to the realization that I had a problem until this year. And that problem is bestiaries. I would buy a bestiary without ever playing the game. Like,
right.
I don't even need the core book. I just want to see all the pretty creatures.
I'm surprised you didn't get the one for Invisible Sun. That one's got some wicked cool stuff in there.
I thought about it.
It's an interesting bestiary.
I thought about it really hard.
It's all good.
I did not. I thought about asking you if you wanted it.
I did, kind of. But I was like, yeah, I don't really need it.
This one, because I was kind of like, oh, yeah, this one's about magic and all this, and I forget what this one's about. But look at this one with all the pretty creatures. Yeah. Anyway, so I found the Lovecraft bestiary, basically is what it is. I mean, it's Lovecraftian creatures.
It's Sandy Peterson's, I can't think of how it's phrased or whatever, but it's from Chaosium. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was right next to the the Berlin Wicked City book, actually.
And it's not really new. It's just new to me.
Right.
But it's fabulous. And there's a wonderful little like flow chart in there. Mm-hmm. What do we call it? It's like a trouble tree.
Trouble tree.
Of Cthulhu. And you're like,
yes or no. Yeah,
exactly. And it's fun.
Does it have a shape?
I want to make one of those like like paper fortune teller things to get you to the Cthulhu creature. I feel like that should happen.
Right on.
It would only take a few minutes. I could do it right now.
All right.
And I also got, so last year I had the Baby Bestiary Volume 2. The year before that I got the Baby Bestiary Volume 1. This year I got the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition rules adaptation for the Baby Bestiary.
Which I thought was really cool.
Yeah,
The Baby
I knew that they
Bestiary
were going to be doing it.
Yeah, I did not. I didn't realize that.
I mean, not when I bought the first one, but then I also bought the second one.
Right.
And then I was like following them on Twitter and
Right.
saw that they were in the process of doing this rule set adaptation. So
Well, I thought they were neat, the books, the Baby Bestiary. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But I was like, I'm not sure. Like, there were some cool ideas in there, I thought, when you looked at it and stuff. But it's like, it's kind of neat, but whatever, cool artwork, but that's just
Right.
what I was going to get. And then when I saw the 5e rule book for it, I was like, oh, I like the idea of that, because then they've sort of done the lifting, the heavy lifting for you. Not that you can't come up with a rule with, like scale down a Sphinx out of the monster manual or whatever, but it's just sometimes it's just easier when someone's already done that for you or whatever.
right,
So.
exactly.
And it's got great artwork.
And you can roll random personality traits for your baby creatures, which is fun.
Yeah, so it's more than just the creatures themselves.
See, to me, it's just you're running games that have creatures in them, and everybody buys art prints that are like, $5, $10, $20. I can pay $40 for a book and have all of this art,
Right.
plus, like written information to go with it that just serves as good inspiration for games and stuff. So, anyways, point being, Bestiaries, awesome. I have a problem. Yeah.
It's all good. So my next one is Silent Titans, and I missed the Kickstarter for whatever reason, and was at the LTFP booth and looked over and saw, oh my God, it's Silent Titans. I have to have this book. So picked it up and got it. And if you haven't seen it, it's really got the greatest artwork ever. It's done by Dirk Lichter. Dirk Lichty.
There it is. I was like, that doesn't sound
It's
right.
Lichty. But it sort of looks like an older style of printmaking in the artwork, and it reminds me of M.C. Escher and kind of like a psychedelic Hunter S. Thompson had a baby, and that's what the artwork is. And it's really, really kind of cool and trippy, and it just leaps off the page at you, and just really an impressive book. And the production quality is amazing. It just is really, really, really good. So I'm excited for it.
And it has tiny rules and character sheets.
Yeah, so it's based off the End of the Odd Rules set, so it comes with a bookmark that has the End of the Odd Rules, and it has the Team Tiny character sheets that have Strength, Dex, Will, because that's how End of the Odd works. And I'm probably going to run it with our own sort of like homebrew BX LTFP mashup thing that we have, or no, there's no or. I guess it'd just be with that, because that's sort of like what I enjoy running. So, but it should be a good time. It'll be easily adaptable to any kind of D20 system.
It's by Patrick Stewart. So.
Yeah, so it's Patrick Stewart did the writing,
It's fantastic.
and Dirk Lichty did the artwork, and it is awesome and amazing. And even if you just get it for a coffee table book, it's definitely worth the money, because it's just a really cool, eye-grabbing piece.
And I don't think I'm wrong, but like the cover underneath the dust jacket is like gold, isn't it?
Yes.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gold, and it just has it says Silent Titans on it or whatever. So, but it has a really nice dust jacket on it that's really cool.
Which I find a little bit annoying, because I love art, but I hate dust jackets
I do
just with
too.
a passion.
I
I
do
hate
too.
them.
But the inside of it has stuff that's actually useful. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting.
I know, but it's not interesting, because it's a piece of paper that I just want to throw away. I wish you would just like wrap it in plain like brown butcher paper, and I would just like to protect your book, and then I would throw that
Throw
piece
that thing
away.
Yeah. What always kind of sucks is that as the book gets a
It
little
gets
older.
torn up the more you take it on and off the I don't know. I guess you could take it off and like fold it up and put it on the inside of the cover or something. I don't know. I just really,
Yeah, I feel a little weird about that.
I don't know.
I don't know.
What the solution is, but
all
I just
good.
hate dust jackets so much. I hate it when they put different art on the dust jacket than is on the cover of the book, because then I have angst about throwing it away.
Right. So what's your next one?
I have kind of I don't know. I was a little disappointed in the Indie Press booth this year. I'm going to be really honest.
Yeah, I think we can kind
I
of...
didn't see a lot of new things, and the things that I saw were new were just like I didn't have much interest in them. I bought one thing, and it was Winterhorn. Mm-hmm. And it's not a new game.
No.
But we really like a lot of Jason Morningstar's games, so I was like, okay, this is cool. And to be honest, I don't know that like the deck box would have really grabbed my attention.
Right.
But the like 1980s style file folders.
Right.
I was like, oh, hey, what is this? And then I kind of picked it up and looked at it and I was like, oh, okay. And the thing in the file folders is not even like essential, but it just comes with all the materials already printed, which was really sweet because we got to play it at the con.
Right.
And if it hadn't had that, I would have had to wait till I printed all the materials off. It would have been like a month or whatever sitting on our shelf until I found time to do it and get everybody together again. Whereas this way, we're already all here. We're already all together. And we're all already looking for something to do at midnight.
Right. Let's do
Stars aligned.
Right.
It was totally worth it.
So that game, Winterhorn, was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. It was kind of a cool experience to do. But I will say, I agree with you to a point with the Indie Press booth that I don't know if it's just because we've got so many indie games now that maybe we're at the edge of just waiting for new things to come out. And I also think that sometimes when it comes to specifically the Indie Press Revolution is there are a lot of people that now used to have their stuff in that booth, but it's sort of like moved into the next tier of things and have started like doing their own publishing and production. And then they have their own booths now. So there's a lot of those games that used to be there that are sort of out and about on the trade floor on their own.
Well, Magpie is sort of sharing, like, I mean, they're like on the backside of that booth.
Yeah.
So they're like right by each other. And they had a couple of new Ashcan games. So we got that Passing RPG. Yeah,
Passing, and then
which was one of their Ashcan games.
The other one, I can't think of what it starts with an S, but it's either Scoundrels or Scallywags, and it's a pirate-based one that they're seeing if they want to develop into some more. So we got both of those because it's PBTA, so I'm kind of a PBTA nerd, whether we play them or not. I don't know. We'll see. But it's always cool to see how...
Well, it's easy with the Ashcan games, right? Because you're like, well, this is like $10.
Yeah, right on.
So even if I never pick it up again, like it's only $10.
Right.
So as I would say, though I was disappointed with the Indie Press booth, I was kind of like pleasantly... I'm not going to say like surprised, but the Indie Game Developers Network's booth, I felt like was stronger than Indie Press this year for me anyway. And that is where I picked up the Baby Bestiary rules set. They also had another game we didn't end up buying. I'm forgetting the name of it, but it looked very intriguing.
It's the one with the Gasmask Guy. And it's like some kind of post-apocalypse thing, and it used cards and all kinds of stuff. So
it had an interesting resolution mechanic and... It looked very complete and well put together.
Right. So I think it's just one of those things where it's the difference between where Indie Press Revolution is just a distributor. So you produce a game and they will distribute it for you. Whereas Indie Game Developers Network, there's, from what I understand, that they are a group of creators that sort of like help mentor one another and troubleshoot things and develop the games, as well as have booths at cons and stuff. So... But it's always, more people is always good. So, you know, it's, I'm really jingling the ice in the glass here. But more games is always better. So whenever we say this kind of stuff, it's not to, like, we're trying to poo-poo on someone or anything. It's just, more is better. You know, it's just how it goes.
More new things is better.
So my next one is kind of a strange one for me. It was Batman Ninja. So
I've never seen the sign for that and just like rolling my eyes a little, like, really?
Yeah,
Batman Ninja.
Like, what is this? So Isaiah was there, our oldest, and he's 13, and he's like, hey, let's demo this card game. And I was like, okay, whatever. I'm cool to demo whatever. And so we sat down, and it's a card game called Weiss and Schwarze, which is black and white in German. But the interesting thing about the game is that they have all kinds of different animes that are all work on the same mechanics of this game. So you could be playing a Attack on Titan deck against my Batman Ninja deck, and the rules are still compatible. Which I think is really kind of an intriguing way. It's sort of like,
that is
hey,
cool. Pick your own IP.
Right? Yeah, because and there were a ton of animes, and most of them I didn't know, and a bunch of them Isaiah didn't even know. So I thought, wow, that's really cool because, like, I like Batman. You know, like when I took the survey afterwards, it was like, why did you play this game? And one of them was literally, I like Batman, and that's the one I picked. I like Batman. So, but it's an interesting way to do it to where, you know, if it's I'm not a big anime person, but if Isaiah finds an anime that's in that black and white, you know, card game that he likes, I could very easily put together this Batman deck and be like, cool, let's play this game. So I went into it with very, very low expectations. And to be fair, the guy that demoed the game for us was a little burned out, but it was Saturday and it was a little later. and I could tell he was just burned out. But like, it's one of those things where we've played enough card games where you can kind of get a feel for what's going on, even if he's just burned out, you know, and you ask a couple questions. And then we've played a couple games since we've came home. And yeah, it's not bad. I think, you know, it's. I'm not going to say that I want to, you know, spend a ton of time doing it, but it's not a bad game, you know, for what for what it is. So.
And you guys got promo.
Yeah, we did get promo decks
just for playing, which is pretty sweet. So.
Yep. And
that deck box, that Batman deck box, pretty sweet.
And Batman Ninja. So can't go wrong.
You didn't get that for demoing. I'm just saying, even if you didn't want to play the game,
right?
You could just buy the deck box and put other cards in it,
right? But Batman Ninja.
Batman Ninja. Yeah. No, Free League.
Oh yeah.
Every book they make is just gorgeous, and I
feel like they're sort of cheating. Do you know what I mean? Like their artwork, and they have in-house artists that are already part of their group or whatever, you know, and the artwork is so good. And
well, like Tales from the Loop. So Things from the Flood is sort of like the sequel to that. So it bumps up 10 years to the 90s. And now instead of playing like children up to the age of, what is it, 15, I think you have to make a new character. Like you can be 10 to 14, I believe, for
yeah, I think so.
Tales from the Loop. And so then this picks up like with the teenagers in the 90s, and I'm not certain yet exactly how the system is different. I know there are some differences though. But again,
it's probably in like the lethality and stuff to make it a little more like not a ton, but a little more.
It's my understanding that your character can die in Things from the Flood.
Right. So, how very 90s.
But it's the same. Yeah, right. I feel you there. All you 80s children with your hopes and dreams, and you get to the 90s and we're like, whatever.
Angst.
We've given up.
Angst.
That's my fallback too. I can feel it happening sometimes. You're just like, oh gosh, this is a learned behavior. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So same wonderful artwork, but different, different flavor. So I'm looking forward to delving into that. And then, of course, they have the Alien RPG coming out, which I didn't really look at because I was just wanting to get Things from the Flood, but I'm sure hugely popular because Alien is awesome. And like I said, everything that Free League makes is of outstanding quality.
Yeah, yeah. And we had some people we know demoed and played Alien the RPG and said it was really good. There's a really cool stress mechanic in it that kind of reminded me of the hunger mechanic in a way. Not exactly, but it kind of inspired by
terribleness.
Yeah, yep. So I think it's going to be good, but I'm still just too big of a fan of Mothership. So I think I'm going to stick in the Mothership vein because I think it'll do this. It does, not it will. It does do the same thing, So
well, when it comes to actually getting your game off the ground and running, there's something to be said for that simplicity.
Yeah, I agree.
Like it's sort of like get all the mechanics and the fluff out of the way so you can actually get to the gaming.
Right, right. So as I mentioned Mothership, so I'm going to jump right into that. And this is going to be a con and a negative, okay? In the same, I'm going to lump them together.
A con and a negative?
I mean,
I believe those are the same things, sir.
A fave and a bust, I think is what we're going with. So I kickstarted a Pound of Flesh for Mothership through Kickstarter, obviously. And it got finished printing. And if you were at Gen Con, you could get your copy at Gen Con. And I also, I can't think what it's called. It's the Space Station one and then the core game. So I got all three of those books there. And I got, I think it's Hive Mind or Hive World or something. It's like their zine that they put together with stuff from the Discord. And I picked it all up there and at Gen Con at their booth. They had some shipping hiccup or whatever, but no big deal. It was like a day later. No big deal. The greater tragedies in the world. And got it all and was super, very, very happy. And it's really interesting when you sit there and you look at it and you see, here is these four zines laying next to each other. And that is enough content, sort of smashed in there as compared to like some of these giant, like the Pathfinder 2 book you see. And it's like 800 pages in that sucker,
So I just look at that and I'm like, ugh.
Well, it's so intimidating to get into.
Work. A lot of work.
And then I've heard some people's critique of Mothership saying that when you open it up, there's so much happening on every page in Mothership that it's kind of intimidating. And I can understand that. But if you understand the basic language of RPGs, I feel like it's just nice because there's no unused space. It's all like I have that very similar creative sensibilities for layout as Sean McCoy does, who's one of the people behind Mothership. And I just was really happy to get there and get to talk with him a little bit and get the Kickstarter at Gen Con, which is really, really awesome. And it's exciting, and you get to go pick it up, and it drums up some excitement for it. And then you get it, and you're like, yeah, this is awesome. Which brings me to sort of like my bust, which is Miseries and Misfortunes, which I'm super, super excited to get my hands on. I'm really, really excited for it. It's sort of like a OSR burning wheel, basically, and it's done by Luke Crane. And it was supposed to be like a 40-page zine, and it developed into a 200-page book. And, you know, so I can't complain about what the product has become. But my problem is that when we got there, I saw it and was like, oh, I wonder if I can get it, because I Kickstarted it, but they were only selling them. And it really, really bothers me when I help get something off the ground to Kickstart it, and then you're selling it before I have my copy. Like, I'm not upset that other people get it.
Right. No, I've seen that complaint from other people too about other games where it's like, I Kickstarted this, I haven't got mine yet. I go to your booth and you're like, oh no, you know, it's coming in the mail.
Right.
There was actually somebody who posted that they had stopped by the booth to say they hadn't got it yet. And then when they arrived back home to get it, it was shipped from Gen Con in a ship naked box.
Oh man.
It's like, that is like, why could you not just pick it up there?
Yeah, because that's the thing is like, I understand if they sell them at Gen Con. I totally get it, because financially, business-wise, it makes a lot of sense. It's a huge convention, lots of money, lots of dollars, $70 million, in fact, right? And so I get that part of it, but I also feel like if I'm coming to the convention, just give it an option for me to pick it up there, and it's fine, you know? And I was really bummed out by it.
Logistics-wise, they have to move everything in order for that to happen, but... Like, you couldn't have dropped those in the mail the week before. I get it's busy, but...
Well, in the case of the Miseries and Misfortunes, they were really up against the wall to get it printed by Gen Con. They were down to a couple days where it may not even come together. So the fact that they got it done is awesome. But I feel like all you had to do is put together an email list of your backers and be like, hey, I'm James. You know, here you go. You're done, you know. And I was really kind of bummed by that, you know, because then you see it, and I was like, if I had walked by that booth one more time, I probably would have just bought a second copy of it, because I really, really want it. And I really feel like looking through it and the PDF, it really looks like a game like that I'm going to want to run a lot. It's really, really cool. It's like I said, it's an OSR burning wheel mashup, kind of like that takes place in the 1700s France, I think, you know, in the time of revolutions and stuff, and just really, really interesting time period. And I'm a big fan of having more than one core book, and for $20, it's kind of like, who cares? But at the same time, I was just like, I just don't want to buy this stupid book. It makes me angry. You know what I mean? Like, not like crazy mad, but like, it just frustrates me, because I'm like, come on, man. You know, you can just, you know, give me the stupid book. You know what I mean? Like, you've got them here. So, I mean, no, I don't want to, I say all that, and say in this specific case, you went from a 40 pages into a 200-page book. So I'll cut you some slack.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What I saw some other booths doing that I hadn't, and maybe it's been going on before and I just haven't seen it, was, okay, you're here, you want this product. Would you be willing to pre-order it here and we'll ship it to you, or do you want it here at the con?
Oh, right.
Which I feel like is a great option, because a lot of people are walking around like, I want this game, I saw it, I want to buy it, but I don't want to carry it with me for the rest of the day.
That, or if you didn't drive in, if you flew in, how do you get them back?
Right.
So,
So now you're giving them the option to ship it, which gives you more product to continue to sell, and that makes a lot of sense, and that would kind of solve this problem. Like, okay, you know, you backed it, here's the book. Right. I still have some copies to sell here. I still have some copies to show. And for people that didn't get in on the Kickstarter, you can see it at the booth. And if you like it, I can give you the option of ordering it to be shipped to you instead.
Right.
I don't know. I think that's a good option that makes it a little more fair.
I definitely agree. It's I don't know. It's just one of those things. I find it a little frustrating sometimes, but what are you going to do?
Nothing.
So,
complain.
True story.
Like we are currently doing.
True story. So, on to bigger and better things. What's your next one? You bought a new game, RPG, that,
Yeah.
Which is a different, I don't want to say a different thing for you, but usually you're not the one that jumps out into a whole new core book. So.
It was a smaller core book.
I don't disagree. I'm not critiquing or naysaying. Yeah, no. I am not by any means trying to, shout it down or anything.
Yeah, we were at the Pelgrane booth and I saw Esoterrorists, which I had not seen before, and I just kind of picked up. I was like, oh, this looks interesting, and then I was kind of looking at it, and then you came over and was like, oh yeah, this is what that is. And I have always loved Connex, but I don't love Unisystem. I just don't. I love how they do their backgrounds.
Right.
Although sometimes it's a bit too much.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that they have so many options and they have all the government organizations broken down. And there's so much good in those books.
Oh, yeah.
But the unit system kind of just turns me off.
Like brief little blurbs about like what is the
and
you
the
know,
center
MK
cards
Ultra.
and all of that is really cool.
Right.
And we've played that before, but I just don't know that it's something that I would want to run.
Mm-hmm.
But this Esoterrorist thing, and I love Orpheus too, right? So I've ran Orpheus for you guys a little bit, but I don't know the whole storyline, and I know you know the whole storyline, so I don't really want to run that because it's sort of like spoiled for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was kind of a good option, and I like the gumshoe system a lot. I think it's a wonderful system for investigative games, and I feel like I could kind of dip my toes in it, but I don't really want to do the Cthulhu thing either.
Right.
Because it's kind of close to my wheelhouse, but like I think I could do it.
You're right.
But I don't think I would be as good at it as like Kurt is my favorite Cthulhu person to run those kinds of games. But so yeah, I thought I would give it a try. And then we were at the booth, and you know, the Pelgrane always does the buy third, get the fourth free thing. So I was like, well, clearly I need another source book to go with this.
My favorite line of the entire con was when you walked over to me with the Esoterrorist book and it was like, is there anything else here that we need? And I said, I mean, there's a couple things, but, you know, whatever, it's all good. And you're like, no, I'm going to get this one. And then if we buy 3, we get the 4th free.
No, I said if we buy 1 book, we might as well buy 4.
Right. So then Ken Hite looked over and said, you can't afford not to save, which was my favorite line of the convention, just randomly. But so we ended up with Dream Hounds from Paris and Book of Ants because it's one of the few Trail of Cthulhu books that we don't have. I've talked about Surrealist art and Surrealist RPGs enough. I mean, it shouldn't be a big surprise that I'm a big fan of that kind of stuff. And just for whatever reason, never picked up Dream Hounds, but now we have it, so we'll see what happens with it. I've been excited about Esoterrorist for a long time, but it was just one of those things where, for me, I thought, I'm not going to run this game. It's just one more thing to put on my plate of games that I want to run, and I don't know that I'll get to it, and there are other games that I would rather run. Now, I'm super excited to play in it, because I like the idea of that style of game, and the Esoterrorist world and X-Files and Orpheus and all the things that you pointed at, but it was just one more thing for me to take on, so I never picked it up. So then when you were like, hey, I'm looking at this, I was like, yes, you are. Get that book. I like this plan. So I was I was glad that it sort of ended up coming together that way. So
I think RPG wise, I think that's all I got into is basically things from the Flood, Winterhorn, and Esoterrorist.
Right.
And then the Lovecraft Bestiary,
right,
which is not really related to anything. It's good for everything.
Good for all things.
Yes.
So yeah, in terms of me, I got the Berlin Wicked City, Silent Titans, and then what I'm going to mention now is the LOTFP booth, The Lamentations of the Flame Princess. I've said it 100 times. Just a big fan of the sort of weird fantasy horror that they sort of put out, and sort of like close the loop on several things that we just didn't happen to have yet. Over the course of a couple Gen Cons, we've just sort of bombarded that booth and closed the loop on several things that we didn't have. So got lots of stuff there. And something that I thought was really cool that they were doing is that if you bought all 4 Gen Con exclusives, I believe you got a free core book, which I thought was a really cool way to sort of promote their games, because you see those zines and they're really easy, like an easy entrance point, you know? Mm-hmm. But then it's like, well, then I've got to get pick one of these and then get the core book and, you know? So I just think it's a great way to sort of...
Again, their core rule book available, PDF, 0 artwork, completely free on their website.
Yeah, but that's the step that a lot of people
I like to have a book too, but I'm just saying.
Right. So that, and then there was a shipping mishap with them, as well as there was a lot of people. I think there's a FedEx mistake, like a big mistake or something for Gen Con. But someone was kind enough to drive all the way up to Michigan and sort through some pallets and bring back their books so that the good people of Gen Con can get the anthologies and the special edition of Deathfrost Doom. So I picked up all of the Lamentations, basically, that... we were sort of missing from our collection, and was very happy to get it, and actually ended up accidentally picking up 2 of No Rest for the Wicked, because I have fat fingers apparently when I picked up the books and didn't realize I had 2, but whatever. And that's also where we got Silent Titans, because Swordfish Island sets up with them at Gen Con as well. So, but loads and loads of good stuff, and the quality continues to come out from them. A couple new things from Zarkov Kowalski, who I think is probably my favorite designer that they have that's sort of in the Lamentations wheelhouse. He does a lot of really, really cool stuff, and I've been following him since I saw Scenic Dunsmith. So dice drops, cards, all kinds of stuff. So lots of good stuff to come from them. I could go on and on about LTFP all day, but so I'll shut up. I'll jump in here. Cool Stuff Inc. has their booth there as always.
Oh, yeah.
And
I love their booth. Discount board games. Yay.
I don't even remember what we were getting. And then Lacey brought over
Azul.
Jonathan.
I was getting Azul because I wanted it since we played it at Hoosier Con.
Oh, no, but you were getting Jonathan. Oh, we were getting the Harry Potter Duel card game.
Yeah.
And then you brought over Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, the board game. And I'm just a huge fan of that show and the book. And was like, I don't even know if this game's any good, but we're going to get it anyway because whatever. And so I'm excited to try it out. We'll see how it goes. I'm cautiously optimistic, although it's only got a 6.4 on Board Game Geek, so we'll see. My estimate is that it might be average, but whatever.
Still better than Monopoly.
True story. True story. So that was a happy accident to just sort of stumble into, which is half the fun of Gen Con, I think, is just sort of stumbling into some of the games you happen to find.
That I got excited about? No. Isaiah and Kaylin really liked Barnacle Bay.
Oh, yeah.
Which is sort of Descent-like. I mean, it's like a miniatures board game. Mm-hmm. You don't have to have an actual overlord like you do with Descent or like the old school Mansions of Madness, which is nice. So it takes out some of that burden and getting bogged down. But
they compared it to Zombicide and Descent combined together.
Yeah, that's kind of what I said too. Well, because of the spawning, the respawning works like Zombicide.
I guess it makes more sense when you say
frequently overwhelmed.
Yeah, as soon as you say that, I'm like, oh, that makes sense because we did have the two.
But the creatures are fun.
Shark bears that appeared
because it's a mixture of like forest creatures and ocean creatures.
Well, it was so weird to me because I was looking and I was like, shark bear,
with a claw.
That's ridiculous. What the heck, shark bear? Really? Are you saying? And I was like, wait a minute, we have owl bear, and we're just like, yeah, it's an owl bear, whatever. And then I was like, okay, I'm 100% nonsense right now because you know what I mean, So, but they have some really cool combinations of creatures, like that crabby, lobstery, whatever it was. It was creepy with the frying pan. So really cool minis though, sort of, like
the miniatures were super exciting. Yeah. The game was okay. I mean, if you like Descent and you like Zombicide, you would like Barnacle Bay. I probably like it a little better than either of the two of them, but it's still like it wouldn't be one that I would buy. But
right.
They had a ton of fun playing it, and the miniatures were cool.
Yeah, the minis were really cool. That's one of those games I think it would really shine if you paint minis and do that kind of thing. That they could really look good. Yeah. So my last two are kind of combined together, and one of them is just catching up with everybody. We saw several friends that we see at Gen Con every year, and then we ran into Todd.
Ogdo.
The OG, and just good to see everyone. It's nice to sort of we
may be going to Gary Con this year.
Yes, we have made a promise. So Gen Con we will be at Hoosier Con, Gen Con.
I promised nothing, but we may be at Gary Con.
And then probably Gary Con. And I would like to do Origins as well. But we'll see what happens. As time goes by, you get really good vacation time, and hopefully there won't be any hurricanes, and I'll be PRN by then. So we'll see how it goes. But we are going to do our very best to get up there and do some awesome gaming. So along with catching up with people, we did a fair amount of gaming, but gaming with our actual gaming group just late at night at the JW, and we had a good time. We played several different kinds of games. We played that Barnacle Bay. We played Winterhorn. You ran your Three Witches or Three Sisters game. Good times, It's nice to get there and be in the hustle and bustle of Gen Con. And then sometimes I feel like, are we cheating us out of a moment because we're playing our games at Gen Con? But then I'm like, no, we're all here. We're all here to game. Does it really matter what game we're playing, So, and especially when we were gaming, it was late at night, so it wasn't like we go to Games on Demand anyway.
Right.
And so, it was a good time. So I think we did a lot of gaming and had a lot of fun. So, because there was one night, I don't think we got back to the hotel till like 4 a.m.
It was pretty close. Yeah, 3:30 or 4.
Yeah.
Time really gets away from you sometimes.
I know we rave about Games on Demand, but this year I was kind of bummed because I think that they were short GMs because it seemed like the games that they had, it may have just been when we happened to be there, there weren't as many that I hadn't seen or that I were necessarily interested in playing. So I still had a good time. We played Tech Noir, and I had a really good time. And it was one of the designers of that game, and really enjoyed it. It was fun. But
I don't really remember playing any games at Games on Demand other than that.
I don't think we did. We bought boarding passes a couple times, but there were just games that didn't seem like...
Yeah, Kurt got in on some other games. I think they played World of Dough again. And then, and we just, our cards got picked last a couple of times, so we opted not, because we couldn't get in a game together, or there was only 4-hour games when you only had 2 hours, which, it happens. It's still a great place. I will still go there every single year. Yeah. What it did for me is I looked at it and I was like, ooh, maybe next year I really should run games.
And you know what? That's what Kurt said, and I felt the same way. It was like, you know what? There's a way to solve this problem, and it's by showing up and running games here. So I'm not sure what that will look like, but I really hope to be able to take Troubadours there. I thought that would be a great place to run some Troubadours and see how that goes. And so, and if anybody, like you guys have played in as many games as I've ran, so there you go. You could totally do it too, but if you wanted to, anyway. But I think that's the plan for next year, maybe just to run a couple of games at Games on Demand and see how it goes, because more games is always better.
And I noticed when we were there that, especially on Saturday, there was more demand than there were games available to.
Yes.
Like there were people and they didn't have enough boarding passes. So,
and then there were people coming up after that didn't have boarding passes, see if there were any openings for people that didn't go into a game. So yeah, there's definitely, if you are interested and run indie games or small press games or whatever you want to call them, and you're at Gen Con, you should really think about even just run one session, just go run a game. And the one thing I will say is, and this is kind of a bust for all of us, I think, is that I heard loads and loads of people say that I set up a game to run a game, or I went to go play a game, and either I was the only player or none of my players showed up, and there wasn't enough to run a game. And that's a huge bummer, and they really need to work to find a way to make that kind of come together a little better. And I'm not going to pretend like I have the solution, because I don't know.
More digital tools would help, so you could get updates in real time about where players were needed and where they weren't. But the fact that the con is so big and there's such a distance between things even makes that less than feasible.
So, but what I can say, though, is if you're at Games on Demand, those games always fill up. So if you're running a game that is sort of in that vein of that story game or indie press style, run it at Games on Demand, because I guarantee you will have a table full of players. And that's the best advice I can give you. If you either want to get into games or you want to run games, take them to Indie Games on Demand and have a good time. So I've got two other quick busts besides events, and one is food trucks. The lines to food trucks seem kind of long, as they always do. And then we just ended up being like, why don't we just go wait somewhere and we can just sit down and have a meal, as opposed to being outside and whatever. And I don't know how to fix that. Either you line the second part of, what is that, Michigan or whatever it is, with more food trucks, so there's more choices. But no matter what you do, it's just, there's so many people. It's one of those things. So what are you going to do? But the food, we've never had a bad experience at the food trucks. The food is always good. It just sucks to wait in the heat because it's August in Indiana. So what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And then my last bummer is that after Gen Con, we come home with all these games, and then we have to clean out the closet and pick games that we don't play anymore and replace them with the new games that we got, which is always kind of a sad thing. It's like, oh, we should have played this game more.
I know. But I'm a little excited, too, because now that our game store has a consignment section, we can take them up there and trade them in for store credit to get more games.
Right. Well, then it's also nice to know that they're going to someone that wants that game and is interested in it or whatever, you know. So I think that's very cool. It's sort of bittersweet, but what are you going to do? So
I have one other, good point to mention.
Go for it.
So I'm going to be honest. Part of the reason I didn't sign up for any events, a little bit of it was not wanting to set my schedule, and a little bit of it is there was just nothing that I cared about happening. There were no games where I was like, yes, I definitely want to get in and play this game. There was nothing coming out that I was like, I have to get on the trade floor right away and pick up this game.
I agree.
There wasn't even honestly anything that I was looking to purchase at all. I mean, Lord knows I found plenty of things to buy. Right. However, and so that's I think my high point for this Gen Con is just I was kind of meh going into the whole thing, and little lackluster about just everything in general with the gaming. And then we go and it's super awesome and we have a fun time. And I meet people who are actually excited to hear us talk about games and are like wondering what we're up to. And I'm like, oh, like people really are listening. And oh yeah, I like gaming now that we're sitting down and playing games again. And I found a couple of things I didn't have before. And so it's just like, you know, getting the juices flowing again. And I don't know. Well, other people excited about games, so now I'm excited about games.
Well, it's one of those things that we always joke about our fiscal years from Gen Con to Gen Con. And in a lot of ways, I think it's true creatively because as this podcast goes on, and I really, really love doing it, and I like to talk about games, and I like reviewing games, and Night Witches I absolutely love, and it's one of the best games I think I've ever ran. But at a certain point, it kind of wears on you a little bit, you know? And then about Gen Con time, I'm starting to wear down, and I'm kind of like, oh, you know... And then we go to Gen Con and we see all this awesome stuff and cool creative projects and talk to people and meet people and talk to creators and meet creators and all that stuff. Yeah, and then I come back recharged and ready to go.
We had 3 interviews.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then sometimes... Like, it's not necessarily that I feel like our podcast needs to make a big difference. You know, like, we're just 2 people talking.
Right.
But then, like, I meet other people that are like, you know, thank you for promoting us. And I think, okay, well, I ran this game. And because I ran this game, somebody bought this book and then ran the game. And that's happened twice now. Yeah. And I think that's pretty exciting. Like, I mean, is okay, so 2 people buying a book is not a huge dent. But these are also books that our gaming store carries now, too.
Yeah.
Based on people having fun when they played my game. And on our recommendation on books that they should shelf.
Right.
So, I mean, if everybody's doing that, then
I totally
those
agree.
Games would get more space.
It makes me happy because that's what we set out to do was to grow small press games and grow their awareness, grow people playing them. And now the Indie RPG Day thing, you may hear us mention it less now because the store actually has bi-weekly now. They're doing their own indie one-shots. And so it was kind of like, cool, we can take a step back and maybe we'll just run some games at that because our goal was never to like make our own huge thing. It was like, we just want to grow small press games.
And they get good attendance.
Yes.
And there's an entire indie RPG shelf now.
Yeah. And I feel like, because we had talked with some of the people from the store and they were like, oh, we're really not trying to push it. And I'm like, no. This is what we wanted. This was our goal. So now we've accomplished this. Now it's either time to make another goal, a new thing, and pursue that, or go run games at another shop and see if we can't make that happen, you know? So, yes, 100% yes. I'm very, very happy with sort of the whatever small impact that we have had. And along with that, you mentioned the game that you were talking about specifically was Bedlam Hall. And they reached out to us and said, hey, we really appreciate all the promoting that you have done for our games and would like to sort of, you know, pay it back and run some games for you. And so we played a session of Bedlam Hall.
And it was amazing.
Yeah, and it was so much fun. We had an amazing time. The Monarch and Marigold, which is a really, really crafty, cool, fun play on words for the King in Yellow. And I just got to say, David is an amazing game master, MC, whatever, master of the house in that case. And we had a truly amazing time. It was so much fun. It was all of us around the table with him running.
And that's it too. That's like part of the motivation, right? So you go there and this person runs a game for you and it's awesome. And you're like, man, I need to do a way better job at this.
Well, it's one of those things where you see different techniques that people use. And he even mentioned, though, that like in Spirit of 77 and Bedlam Hall, that's the voice he uses. But when he runs Malice, it's much more subdued and he stays at the table because it depends on the game you're running, you know, and some games need that over to the topness and stuff. So big shout out, as always, to Monkey Fun and all of their stuff. Spirit of 77, Bedlam Hall, Malice is on Kickstarter now and is finished and is I just fill out the backer kit survey to get the rewards for it.
So obviously we haven't played that one yet.
No, but super the other excited to do it. And the other two are great. Fun. Yeah.
Honestly, like Spirit of 77 was the most fun I think I have ever had playing an RPG ever. Like from the time I started at age 12 till 20 years later now. The solidly most fun, like laugh out loud role playing experience.
Well, I gotta do the disco ambulance scenario.
It's so silly. And like sometimes things should just be silly and fun. And I think that's part of what really like was getting to me at the Indie Press booth this year is like all of the games there. Super serious.
Yes, I agree.
And I mean, that's good sometimes. And I like those games too. But there are not enough just with it. Silly games.
For every 10 candles and for every Winterhorn, you've got to have a Spirit of 77 and a Worldwide Wrestling. You know, you've got to have that because, you know, no one wants to watch, you know, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo all day, every day.
They did have Worldwide Wrestling there, but it's one game compared to like 20.
Right. So, but that just may be a shifting thing with the creatively, and it'll probably swing back the other way, you know. Yeah, I just can't say enough good things. Really, really appreciate, Monkey Fun and David coming in and running those games because we had such a great time. And then he was kind enough to look at Troubadours because we had kind of talked about it a little bit, and I showed him what I had, and so that was one of my highlights for the entire con was to play that game because it's just fun. It's fun to play games that people are passionate about and that they really enjoy, you know. And then on kind of like the nerdy game side of it, you get to see what their vision of the game is. Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like how they perceive the game. So, and I got to get my questions asked about the playlist because I will tell you, Monkey Fun has the best gaming sort of tool and resource ever. Is the playlist for all of their games. All of their games come with a Spotify playlist, and if you look at Punk as Fuck or Goth as Fuck or Spirit of 77, like the playlists and the songs that are on there, they go deep. Like they are, you know, I was like, how do you have this weird knowledge or like this kind of like strange taste or in music to where you know the songs that people should, you know, without some cursory Google search of what it should be, you know, you can look at it. And if you know, like I'm an old school punk fan, I'm like, whoa, like this is a legit playlist right here. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just enough to where it's sort of like, has some of the cliche stuff in it, you know what I mean? But the stuff that you like, you know, and then at the same time has some stuff where you're like, oh no, this is like legit. Do you know what I'm saying? You know, So the last thing we did to mention before we wrap things up here is that Lacey already mentioned we did 3 interviews. So we sat down with creators from Swordfish Islands, and that was Jacob Hurst, Donnie Garcia, and Dirk Lichty. Mm-hmm. So Jacob and Donnie were involved with Hot Springs Island, and Dirk did the artwork for Silent Titans, and that interview should be coming out next Wednesday, so that one should be going up. And for our Patreon supporters, it'll be going up right away, probably in the next couple days, as I get the audio for that sort of assembled and put together. And as always, we don't do any editing on our interviews. We sort of just like maybe cut out some verbal tics and shorten some silences. But that way you can kind of hear them unedited because we like to just geek out with creators and talk about games and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So in addition to that, we have an interview. We sat down with James Bradgie from Lamentations of the Flame Princess again and talked about some pretty heavy stuff. And that one's a really interesting insight into sort of his views on censorship and publishing and stuff. And he took some pretty big lumps this year, and so did Lamentations about what their stance on publishing and censorship. So it was really interesting to sort of play devil's advocate with him a little bit, and then also just sort of like let him speak his piece where he's coming from and his views on censorship and stuff. So that one will be coming, I believe we're going to do one interview a month, so that one will be coming out in September. And there's another interview that we have that we'll release on our Patreon that we can tease, but that one's probably not going to be released on the regular feed for quite a while because that one needs to coincide with promotion of when the product comes out. So a little teaser for that one. So, but all 3 of those interviews will be up. The Jacob Hurst one and Swordfish Islands one will be up probably early next week, and it will be released on the regular feed on Wednesday. And then the Lamentations one and our mystery interview will be released on our Patreon feed shortly thereafter, and then in September for the Raji interview. So, alrighty. Well, anything else to mention about Gen Con before we wrap this one up here?
Ooh, I don't think so.
Right. So Gen Con 52 was a lot of fun. We had a great time. As always, we're looking forward to Gen Con next year. It'll be back in Indianapolis. The dates are already posted, so I'm not sure what they are off the top of my head, but it is early August again. And if you guys can and want to, Gen Con is always an amazing experience, and we'd love to see any of you there and maybe sit down and play some games and put some names to faces and whatnot, and just have a good time. If not, maybe we'll see you at GaryCon or HoosierCon if we're there, or at Origins. And so just this is sort of like our year-end thing when we kind of like we go from Gen Con to Gen Con. So just really want to say a big thank you to everyone out there that listens to us and supports us through Patreon or listening or reviews or any way that you support us by telling a friend. All of you out there are really sort of what keep us inspired to keep doing this. And we really, really appreciate all the kind words that you send us through email and all that kind of stuff. I just can't say enough good things. There's been a lot of people that have reached out to us. Thank you so much for sort of supporting the show in any way that you do. And if you like what we do here, you can support us at patreon.com/justonemorefix and get access to all of our raw audio feeds and early releases, as well as our zines on PDF or print, depending on what level you're at. And you can join all the awesome Patreon supporters like Treza, Tiziano Furlano, Alistair H., Simon McNair, Alan White, and the OG Todd Olson. I think I got through those as quickly as I have ever gotten through. I finally got the words down. And just a big thank you from all of us. We really, really appreciate it. Gen Con is always sort of like a bittersweet homecoming for us in a lot of ways because it is kind of local for us. And just a big, big thank you. And we will see you guys next week.
Thanks for listening. This has been an episode of Just One More Fix. Music has been provided by Kevin MacLeod. You can find him at incompetech.com. You can support us at patreon.com/JustOneMoreFix or follow us on Twitter at JustOneMoreFix.